The stars had shifted. That was the first indication something was wrong. The humans aboard the fleet had been charting the fringes of known space, expecting to pass through empty sectors where nothing but the cold, indifferent light of distant stars greeted them. But as the fleet moved further into the uncharted region, their readings became erratic, their instruments flickering with strange energy signatures. The crew had been on edge for days. The constant hum of the vessel felt louder than usual, the tension palpable among those responsible for guiding the ship through the void. The captain, experienced in long journeys, stared at the projections in front of them, trying to make sense of the anomalies. It was as if space itself had begun to twist around them, the stars warping and stretching into unfamiliar patterns. "We're still on course," the navigator said, though the unease in their voice was evident. "But something's off." The captain didn't need to be told twice. The entire crew had noticed it. Something subtle at first, a shift in the atmosphere. And then, without warning, the ship trembled, not from any external force, but as if the very fabric of space had warped around them. Before anyone could react, a flash of light filled the ship, blinding the crew for a split second. When their vision cleared, the stars outside had changed. Entire constellations had vanished, replaced by swirling colors and unfamiliar shapes. The crew exchanged confused looks, their tension now thick with fear. The captain's voice cut through the silence. "Where are we?" No one had an answer. The charts no longer matched what they saw outside. The ship was far from where it had been moments ago. Whatever had pulled them into this new space, it was unlike anything they had ever encountered before. The fleet drifted cautiously through the unfamiliar region. The light outside was different now, dimmer, yet somehow filled with swirling energies that danced in the distance. None of the crew could recognize the phenomena. It was as though they had been transported to an entirely new dimension, where the laws of physics no longer applied in the same way. "What are those?" someone asked, pointing out the observation deck at the vast luminous tendrils that wove through the stars. They looked almost alive, pulsing with energy, but too distant to fully comprehend. The commander remained focused, issuing orders to the crew, who scrambled to assess the ship's status. The readings were strange, fluctuating wildly as if the systems couldn't interpret the data from their new surroundings. They were still functional, but something about the energy in this region interfered with their sensors, making it difficult to get an accurate reading. "We have to figure out where we are," the captain said, pacing, "and how to get back." As the fleet continued to drift, strange signals began to echo through the ship's systems, faint, erratic, almost like whispers. They didn't resemble any known communication methods, and the crew struggled to decipher their meaning. It was clear they weren't alone in this new region of space. "Try and make sense of those signals," the captain ordered. "There has to be someone out there." Hours passed with no progress. The signals were too fragmented, too alien. And then, out of the darkness, a shape appeared. It was massive. At first, it seemed like another distortion of the strange space around them, but as the shape drew closer, it became clear this was a vessel, unlike anything the humans had ever seen. Its surface shimmered with strange, fluid movements, its design entirely foreign. It moved with purpose, closing the distance between them quickly. The captain ordered all systems to stand by. The fleet, small and isolated, wasn't prepared for an encounter with a force of this magnitude, especially not in an unknown region like this. But retreat wasn't an option either. Where could they go when they didn't even know where they were? "They're hailing us," someone said, though the message they received was nothing more than a series of incomprehensible sounds and flashes. The crew exchanged nervous glances. "They're trying to communicate," the captain said, "but it's not any language we know." The crew worked quickly to translate the signals, though it was a slow and painstaking process. Meanwhile, the alien ship held its position, observing the human fleet with what felt like curiosity, or perhaps something more sinister. It was impossible to tell. Finally, the message became clear. The alien ship was not welcoming them. It was issuing a warning. "Leave this region," the message repeated over and over. The crew's faces turned pale as they realized the implication. The aliens hadn't attacked, but they clearly didn't want the humans here. And given the vast size of the alien ship compared to their own, the fleet's chances of survival were slim if things turned hostile. "Do we respond?" one of the officers asked, but the captain's expression was hard. "We can't leave," they said. "We don't even know where we are." As the crew debated their next steps, the alien vessel began to emit a low hum. Its surface glowed with strange energy, and suddenly the humans understood. They weren't being given a choice. The aliens were preparing to remove them by force if necessary. "All systems on standby," the captain ordered, though they knew it was a long shot. The fleet wasn't equipped for a full-scale confrontation with an unknown species. And yet, as the alien ship's energy continued to build, they had no other option but to defend themselves. But before the conflict could begin, something unexpected happened. Without warning, the space around them warped again. It was as if the very fabric of reality had bent, pulling the human fleet deeper into the alien region. The crew braced themselves as another flash of light filled the ship, and when the light faded, they found themselves in yet another part of this strange dimension. The alien ship was gone. The crew blinked in confusion, disoriented by the sudden shift. They had no idea what had just happened, but the alien threat had disappeared, at least for the moment. What was that?" one of the officers asked, staring out at the unfamiliar stars. The captain didn't answer. They had no idea where they were, or how they had moved so suddenly. The ship's readings were no help. Their instruments couldn't make sense of the data, and the strange space around them seemed to defy logic. But one thing was clear: they weren't safe. The fleet drifted in silence for hours, the crew too shaken to speak. The captain knew they needed to find a way back to familiar space, but the path forward was unclear. Their systems were barely functional, and the strange energies in the area were interfering with their ability to navigate. "We need to figure out what's going on with this place," the captain finally said, breaking the silence. "If we're going to survive, we need answers." The crew got to work, studying the strange phenomena outside the ship, the swirling energies, the distortions in space. Everything pointed to the idea that they were in a region of space unlike any other, possibly a different dimension altogether. The laws of physics didn't seem to apply here in the same way, and that made everything more dangerous. As the crew continued their research, they made a disturbing discovery. The signals they had been picking up earlier were growing stronger, and they weren't coming from the alien ship. They were coming from the space itself. "This place is alive," one of the scientists said, their voice trembling. "The entire region. It's like it's watching us." The captain frowned, not liking the sound of that. If the space around them was somehow sentient, that meant they were being observed, possibly even manipulated, and there was no telling what the consequences of staying here would be. "We need to leave," the captain said, their voice firm. "Whatever this place is, it's not safe." But leaving wasn't so simple. Every time the fleet attempted to move, the space around them would shift, pulling them deeper into the rift. It was as if the dimension itself was trapping them, refusing to let them go. The crew's frustration grew. They were stranded in a hostile, alien region with no way to escape, and the constant interference from the strange energies made it impossible to chart a course home. Supplies were running low, and morale was even lower. As the days dragged on, strange phenomena began to plague the fleet. Shadows flickered in the corridors, even when there was no light source. Objects moved on their own, seemingly influenced by the shifting space around them. And the signals, those eerie, alien signals, grew louder, more insistent. "Whatever this place is," the captain said, "it's playing with us." As hope seemed lost, the alien ship reappeared. This time, it didn't come with a warning. It simply hovered in the distance, observing. The crew tensed, waiting for another confrontation, but the ship made no move to attack. Instead, a new message came through, a proposition. "They want to help us," one of the officers said, though they sounded skeptical. "They say they can guide us out." The captain narrowed their eyes. Why the change of heart? The captain asked, their voice hard with suspicion. The officer hesitated, scanning through the data. They claimed they didn't expect us to survive this long. They believe we've proven ourselves by enduring the region's effects. They say the space around us is a living force, something ancient that watches and consumes what it deems unworthy. They believe we've passed some sort of trial. The captain didn't like it. The idea that they had been tested, possibly toyed with, was unsettling. Still, their fleet was running out of options. The strange rift space was unpredictable, hostile, and there was no clear way out. If the aliens truly could help, refusing them might doom the fleet. Do we trust them? One of the crew asked, voicing what everyone was thinking. The captain thought for a long moment. The alien vessel had shown restraint so far. It hadn't fired on them despite having every opportunity to do so. And if they really understood this dimension, they might be the only chance for survival. We don't have a choice, the captain finally said. Open a channel. Let's hear what they have to say. The message that followed was a mixture of unfamiliar sounds and visual symbols, strange yet eerily rhythmic. It took time for the humans to fully decipher it, but the gist of the offer was clear. The aliens had a way out, a method of navigating the shifting space that was beyond human comprehension. In exchange, they demanded a trade, a resource aboard the human ships that held value to them, something that, to the humans, seemed almost trivial but was precious to this alien species. What could they possibly want from us? One of the crew asked, confused. The answer, when it came, was unexpected. The aliens wanted access to the humans' data storage, specifically, their archives of historical records, art, music, and culture. It seemed the aliens were not just technologically advanced, but culturally starved. They were collectors of knowledge, particularly interested in the ways civilizations grew, adapted, and perished. We give them our history, the captain murmured, and they help us survive. There was discomfort in the air, but the terms were clear. The fleet couldn't afford to linger in this hostile dimension any longer. We don't have much to lose, one of the officers said. If we don't get out of here, we won't be around to protect that knowledge anyway. Reluctantly, the captain agreed. The exchange was arranged. The alien vessel began transmitting navigational data to the human ships. The information was complex, far beyond the fleet's current technology, but it was precise. As the human fleet followed the aliens' guidance, they noticed the space around them beginning to stabilize. The strange fluctuations in the stars lessened. The swirling energies seemed to calm, and their instruments slowly started responding normally again. Yet, there was still a lingering unease. The crew couldn't shake the feeling that they had been drawn into something far bigger than they could understand. Are we really escaping? Someone whispered, or are we just being moved to another part of the trap? No one had an answer. The alien vessel maintained its distance, never approaching closer than necessary. It simply acted as a guide, leading the human fleet through the treacherous rift space, seemingly without effort. It was clear that the species had an intimate knowledge of the region, a knowledge that bordered on the supernatural. Just as the fleet neared what the aliens claimed was the boundary of the dimension, something changed. The space around them began to warp again, but this time it was different, more violent. The stars seemed to twist in impossible patterns, and the ship's instruments went haywire once more. What's happening? The captain shouted over the chaos. The answer came not from the crew, but from the alien ship. A new transmission arrived, frantic and hurried, as if the aliens themselves were surprised. The rift, it seemed, had noticed their departure. It wasn't just a passive force. It was alive, and it wasn't going to let them go easily. The alien ship began to accelerate, urging the humans to follow. But the space around them had other plans. Tendrils of energy, vast and powerful, lashed out from the surrounding void, striking the human ships. The fleet shook violently as the rift tried to pull them back into its depths. "We're not going to make it," one of the officers yelled as the energy fields intensified, threatening to tear the ships apart. The captain gritted their teeth, refusing to give up. "Push everything we have into the engines." We're getting out of here. The human ship surged forward, straining against the overwhelming force of the rift. The alien vessel, now fully engaged in the struggle, emitted waves of energy that seemed to counteract the rift's pull. But it was clear that even they were struggling. For a moment, it seemed like all hope was lost. The rift's power was too great, and the ships were on the verge of being torn apart. But then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the pressure eased. The ships broke through the barrier, bursting into open space. The twisted, chaotic energy of the rift disappeared behind them, leaving only the calm, familiar expanse of stars. The fleet drifted, battered but intact, in what appeared to be normal space once again. The crew let out a collective sigh of relief. They had made it, but as the alien ship slowed and the fleet regrouped, the captain couldn't shake the feeling that something was still wrong. They had escaped the rift, but they hadn't won. The alien vessel had led them out, but at what cost? The trade had been made. Human history, art, and culture were now in alien hands. What happens now? One of the crew asked quietly. The captain stared out at the alien vessel, which had stopped transmitting. The deal was done, and the aliens made no further attempts to communicate. They had what they wanted, and for now, the humans were free. But as the alien ship turned and disappeared into the vastness of space, a final thought lingered in the captain's mind. Had they truly escaped the rift? Or had they simply traded one trap for another?